Hockey Talk Show on a Wednesday, January 10th, and thanks for being here with us on the program. Lots to talk about. Of course, we're going to be tackling the big issue on the program tonight or today, this morning, whenever you're streaming or listening to this via podcast, and that is the NHL All Star Roster, which has just been announced at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Right off the bat, the interesting thing about the All Star Roster is it was supposed to be announced at 12 noon and a 4-hour delay, and no matter the source or the Twitterverse or where I seem to go, I can't really seem to find a reason as to why the announcement of the All-Star game was delayed by 4 hours, but indeed a 4-hour delay in naming your NHL All-Stars for this upcoming All-Star game in Tampa Bay. And no alluding to why there was such a long break in the announcement. Perhaps they couldn't get things figured out. Maybe some players declined to go, or they were just trying to get it all under, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. And I'm not going to speculate. Of course we're going to speculate. That's what we do here. We speculate. Nothing wrong with a little speculation. Bunch of hockey people just talking about hockey, speculating about hockey. So what? A little speculation is good. I would guess, and again, totally in speculation here, that there was obviously some sort of a delay, some sort of a conversation that took place, a player that wasn't ready, or there had to be some reason for the delay because they were all ready to go. And again, noon time is a really great time for the NHL to be releasing information. Hockey Central in Canada takes place, radio show, television show that is broadcast in the States on the NHL Network and on Sportsnet in Canada. So a lot of the hockey world comes together to watch that. So that's a big thing. Usually noon is the time. They know that's a big thing. When the NHL Network was producing their own content, their show was at noon, and that was a big deal. And noon is just a good time. Everybody comes off the ice for morning skate. Usually morning skates are wrapped up and done. Players will get into their meals and into their day and whatever they're doing. So noontime is a big time for an announcement. And literally 4 o'clock would be the next time because a lot of players go off and take naps and get ready. And then they're up and they're back headed towards the rink at around 4 o'clock or so. So that would make sense as to why 4 o'clock was the announcement. But we have the rosters, and we'll go through them with a fine-tooth comb and figure out why the delay, and more so who got in and for what reasons did they get in. Also on the show today, we're going to be talking about Evander Kane, most notably the obvious choice to be traded in the upcoming trade season, if you will, here as we head towards the deadline. And we have now a price on what Evander Kane would cost if the Buffalo Sabres go on and move him. We will talk about that price tag and what that's going to do to the rest of the market, which, by the way, nothing surprising. And I think that price tag will come down if they don't have any suitors. But I think they're going to have plenty of suitors. Going to talk a little about the New York Islanders today. Two things. Brock Nelson, is he on the trade block? And Gary Bettman visits the Nassau Coliseum to assess if it's suitable or not for the Islanders to return there in the interim while their new home is being built in Belmont. So all that and more covered on the episode of the Hockey Talk Show. If you're streaming on Facebook or YouTube, remember to hit that like button and hit the share button too. Share it around to your hockey friends. Let them know that you got a hockey show that you like and enjoy, and they can join the mix if they want to be a part of the Hockey Talk community. If you're listening to this via podcast, thanks so much for doing so. Rate and review on Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, and now on Spotify. Remember to rate and review the podcasts because that's how we assess and move up the ranks of podcasts. 631-438-1768 on the phones. We will get to your calls a little bit later on in the program. Right now, comments on Facebook and YouTube certainly welcome here as we kick off this, all-star announcement episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Oh, we also have a fight to talk about. A little bit of a fight, speaking of Evander Kane. So we'll do an Evander Kane Buffalo Sabres portion of this, but we had a little bit of a scuffle in practice today as Evander Kane continues to tick off teammates. If you remember, before Evander Kane was traded from Winnipeg to Buffalo, I can't remember who it was that did it to him, and I'm not sure if we actually ever found out exactly who it was, but remember they took Evander Kane's gear, his street clothes or his sweat clothes that he wears around the rink, and they threw it in the shower and they turned the shower on. They treated Evander Kane quite poorly, and that was a big story in the league for a little while there while that was happening. It sort of was the, some of the reasons why he was eventually traded and moved out of Winnipeg to begin with. But Evander Kane definitely inspires conflict among teammates. Let's just say that. Again, I don't know if it was his fault. Was it Bufflin? Thanks, Eddie. Christian, welcome to the show, man. I don't know if it was Bufflin. I don't know if it was provoked. All I'm saying is this is the second time, and I think there was another time with Winnipeg. I think the clothes in the shower was one of two incidents that happened there before he was dealt. I'd have to really go back and jog the memory, which memory's not all that there. Too many hockey pucks to the head. Genuinely too many hockey pucks to the head. I remember when I coached hockey for a little while, bam, took one on the bench. Not a fun scenario. Hence why I can't exactly remember if there was one or two incidents, but I know for sure there was one. Eddie says it was with Bufflin, and I believe him. It's coming back to me now, starting to make sense there. So I don't know if Evander's a problem. I know he's definitely got a swagger and an attitude about him. I know that. Whether it deserves the reaction he's getting from teammates, that I don't know. This one with Buffalo seems to be a little bit more regular than, say, what happened with him with the clothes in the shower and everything in Winnipeg. So we'll delve into that as well. Let's go to Christian. Brock Nelson deserves to be traded. Does he? Does he? I just don't know. Now, the ire amongst Isles fans, especially on Twitter, is that Brock Nelson should be traded. Christian, Islander fans and Twitter agree with you, my man. They are all in with Christian on this one. And I think I might be the minority when it comes to Brock Nelson being traded, because I would prefer him to stay in the Islanders blue and orange. I think that Brock is a tremendous athlete, a wonderful player. I think he is a hustler. And I also think that he has a place within the New York Islanders team. I think the Islanders need a great third line center. I don't think Brock likes to be on the third line, but with the surgence of Matthew Barzal, it's very apparent that nobody's going to be taking over that second center line except for Matthew Barzal. So I don't know if Brock Nelson is really going to be able to ever beat out 13 for that spot. That being said, even though he may not like it, I think his position with the team is in a third line center role, and I think he can do super well there. I also, and again, Christian, I'm not coming down on you, man. This is more so general Islander fans, in general. His play has been lackluster, so I'm with you on the attitude towards him. I'm not surprised. I get it. 29's play has been lackluster, but I'm not exactly sure what Islander fans want from this kid, because 43 games in, halfway into the season, he's got 9 goals and 5 assists. Now, is that low? It sure is. But he is on pace to be, again, a 20-goal scorer in his career. Now, that is something that he has attained essentially every single season except for the first that he's been in the league. So 20 goals his second year in, 26 his third, 20 his fourth, and he's on pace for another 20-goal year. He's a 40-point player, point every other game kind of a player. He's got a few less assists this year. I think that speaks more to the line that he is on as opposed to where he is. And I also think that he has to digest playing in that smaller role of being a third line player. I think Brock Nelson is a phenomenal talent and a really, really strong player. And I make no apologies for that. I know he's been juggled around the third line. And right now, much to my chagrin, Shane Prince is in the lineup for the Islanders, playing alongside Brock Nelson. And I know they get juggled around, whether it's Ladd, but Ladd tends to be on that second line with Barzal and Eberle. So sometimes it's Ladd. Ladd's hurt right now. Tanner Fritz, I know, had some time on that line. Beauvillier has had some time on that line. Alan Quine has had some time on that line. So it's been a little bit of a rotating thing with Brock Nelson. But I think, you know, if you had 66 back up, which, by the way, Brock had some chemistry with Joshua Hosang. I think if you have 66 back up and you have either 16 on that line with him or 72, I think that's a tougher line. Again, and I've said this in the past when it comes to the New York Islanders, when 66 is in the lineup, they're a different looking team. They're more 3 offensive lines instead of, you know, 2 offensive lines, a checking line, and then a really big checking line. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think Nelson's assists have been affected in that way. But his goal scoring, he's on pace for 20 goals again. I mean, you can argue with me that he's on pace for 18 goals. Okay. He's going to be on pace for 20 goals again. And by the way, he tends to be a second half player. He tends to heat up a little bit. So I understand where the anger is generated from because his attitude seems like it's not there. But at the same time, I caution Islander fans to not wish for his trade right away because I do believe that he could be a valuable asset for this team, especially moving forward. Now, his name has been dropped around in trade rumors, and we certainly will get to that. You want to do that right now? I guess let's do that right now. Let's talk about Brock Nelson and some of the trade rumors. I think it was Darren Dreger who first brought this up about the, or was it Elliot Friedman? I can't remember now. Let's see here. It was Elliot Friedman. He reports that Islanders forward Brock Nelson is starting to creep out there in the rumor mill. With defenseman Johnny Boychuk and Calvin DeHaan sideline, the Isles need blue line help. Friedman believes there will be interest in Nelson. He also wonders if the Isles might take a look at Buffalo Sabres goaltender Robin Lehner. Now, all that being said, everything that I just said about Brock Nelson staying, if you have an opportunity to get Robin Lehner, see you later. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. Because Robin Lehner is an outstanding goaltender and an answer to a lot of the Islanders' problems. And the Islanders can make up Brock Nelson's goals if they can acquire Lehner. And maybe it might take a Brock Nelson to get a Robin Lehner. Sure, it would take probably Nelson and Dal Cole and maybe even a first-round draft pick. Would you want to trade that? Would you want to do it? I don't know. Brock Nelson's a good player, man. He is. He really, really is. And he's coming into his own. And let's not forget, he's only 26. And this is only his, what, 5th year in the league, did I say? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is his 5th season in the league. Hard to give up on a guy that's been scoring 20 goals for you for 5 years straight, practically. So I don't know. I don't know about letting Brock Nelson go right away, but certainly if you're going to acquire a deep, deep need for your team, you'll have to sit there and think about a Robin Lehner. I really do. I think about Robin Lehner would be a possibility. I want to hold off on the rest of the trade rumors. We'll get to the trade rumors, of course. Let's stick with the Islanders here since we started here, and it's a good place to be. The brand new Jiffy Pop Stadium, or some of you know it better as the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, was the topic of a big subject with the New York Islanders today because Gary Bettman toured the Nassau Coliseum, and it was a big story here in Newsday, and we will get into it just a little bit on exactly what was discussed and what was talked about. Now, I happened to hear an interview with Jonathan Ledecky this morning. He was on Boomer and Geo on WFAN here in New York, And I listened to that, and there's a couple of things here. One, the interesting thing I found from Jonathan Ledecky is he said that it's up to the league to determine whether or not the Coliseum is a viable option for the Islanders. Now, Bill Daley just a couple of days ago said, well, it's ultimately going to be up to the Islanders if they decide if they want to play there or not. So what's the answer really? The answer is they're both kind of correct. The league is going to have to give the okay, give the check mark on it, and it's going to be up to the Islanders who are eventually going to decide. I think this is much to do about nothing, because where the hell else are you going to play? Your only other option literally is Madison Square Garden. Now, the Islanders could also go and play out of the Rock in Jersey, but that would be fairly catastrophic. I don't think a lot of their teams, the fans of the Islanders don't want to go to Brooklyn. They are definitely not going to want to go to Newark, New Jersey. And the Garden, you got to consider they have the Knicks, they have the Rangers to deal with, and then they have all their concerts, ice capades, circuses, and everything else. It would be really hard to fit the Islanders into the bill of Madison Square Garden. But if, like, for instance, if the ceiling started caving in on the Barclays Center tomorrow and the Islanders had to play a game somewhere, they would be at Madison Square Garden and they'd figure out a way to make it work. But as far as playing a whole entire season there, that's not optimal. You have an arena right on Long Island. Sure, it only has 13,000 seats, but regardless of the fact, it's not optimal. But for only one season, maybe two, I think you go with it. They're not going to relocate outside of the States. Now, the other option is, can they figure out a way to make it work at the Barclays Center for those extra 2 years, sign an extension, make that happen? I think that's part of it. But again, here, the reason why there's all this, I don't know where they're going to go, is because there's money on the table. Barclays Center has to pay, the rumor is, the Islanders $50 million. Why should the Islanders walk away from that money if they move to Nassau Coliseum? It's the Barclays Center that wants to get rid of them. Now, the Islanders can be the ones that ultimately opt out, and I think they actually had to. I think that was done in the end of December. But regardless of that, just because they opt out doesn't mean that they leave that money on the table. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of interesting things at play here, and I think the Islanders are holding out on giving a definitive answer because they want to put the Barclays Center in that awkward position where they'll say, okay, we'll pay if you move to the Coliseum. Now, I don't think that they're going to wind up paying $50 million, but somebody's going to have to make up those 2,000-3,000 seats. And again, for the Islanders, it's not going to really make much of a difference because they're going to average an attendance around 11 or 12,000. So you're not going to really notice it all that much. But come playoff time or Ranger games, you know what I'm saying? Or, Penguins games, they're going to sell out and there's going to be a huge demand for tickets. And I think that you're going to see, the strain on that building during those times when they could have put 15, 16,000 people in there. And instead they can only fit 13. Now, don't think that for a second they're not going to make it up with premium games, because I'm sure the tickets for Rangers Islanders at the Coliseum will be through the roof just to make up for the fact that they're 3,000 seats shy of where they should be. But nonetheless, I digress. Gary Bettman toured the Jiffy Pop Arena here, and he assessed the improvements they need for the arena to host Islander games while the team's new home at Belmont is being built. This, according to Jim Bomback, who's done a tremendous job on following the progress of the Belmont Arena. Laura Curran, the new Nassau County executive, John Ledecky, Brett Yormark, along with Kevin Law. He is part of the Long Island Association. All were in attendance. The NHL was in attendance, and a lot of the NHL TV crew was in attendance as well. A source said there was a 30-minute meeting followed by a 90-minute tour of the facility. The NHL, the Islanders, Brooklyn Entertainment, and current spokesman confirmed the meeting took place but declined to further comment. It was Governor Cuomo who forced the meeting to begin with when he called out Gary Bettman during the announcement of the Belmont Park Arena to say, please consider keeping the Islanders in Long Island, at least for the short term, at the Nassau Coliseum. The Islanders in the Barclays Center are in the process of opting out of their lease agreement. Ledecky has said the Islanders plan to play the 2018-19 season in Brooklyn as per the team's arena lease. Sources familiar with the negotiations said the two sides are discussing playing some Islander games at Nassau Coliseum as early as next season. See, you know what is smart? You can go ahead and play your games against Carolina, Winnipeg, Arizona. You know, the teams that don't draw for you. You can go ahead and make those special games that would normally get, 9 or 10,000 in attendance. You can go ahead and play them at the Coliseum and pack it out at 13,000 just because it's at the Coliseum. So I think that's a smart business savvy move, and that's where the Islanders are coming from. In a statement last month, Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment, which operates both the Barclays Center and the Nassau Coliseum, said the company is prepared to facilitate any necessary enhancements to the arena. At issue is what specifically needs to be done and which entity will pay for it. The Coliseum, now named NYCB Live's Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, reopened last March after a $165 million renovation. Last week, NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley told Newsday the league is open to the Islanders playing games at the Nassau Coliseum while the team's arena at Belmont Park is being built. I wouldn't rule out the possibility, he said. Bettman had long maintained that the Coliseum is not a suitable place for the team to play, and even so on a temporary basis. The commissioner softened his stance at the December announcement. The Islanders played their home games at the Coliseum from 1972 to 2015. The Coliseum's current setup includes 13,900 seats for hockey, and the locker rooms and facilities are far below the square footage typically seen in modern NHL arenas. So therein lies the problem. Now, if you're a loyal fan of the Hockey Talk Show, A, thanks a bunch, and B, really mean that, and B, you know that I took my little son to his first game at the Coliseum this season, first Islander game there. It was a preseason matchup between the Flyers and the Islanders, and at a preseason game, it was sold out. It was to capacity. And when we went in there, we saw the Jiffy Pop outside, and we saw, brand new inside and, painted very nice and marble floors now and all these wonderful things. But what also we saw was all the problems of this building to begin with. Small concourse. Not enough bathrooms, not enough concession stand space. You literally wait online everywhere you go, and it's irritating. And Islander fans, I know the excitement of having the Islanders back at the Coliseum would be great, but trust me, 10 games into the season, everybody will be complaining about the same old problems, talking about, boy, I can't wait till we get over to Belmont. So I know that we're all wishing for a return for the Islanders, but I think we should be really patient waiting for Belmont. Really, really patient. Not to say that I don't think that we should want them to go to the Coliseum. Of course we do. And I think it's going to be a fine year and a half there. But again, it's completely not suitable, and the Islanders should try and get out of there as soon as physically possible. We'll get into the All-Star Game rosters, and then we will get into the drama of the fight at Sabres practice. Let's start with the Sabres division here as we get into the All-Star Game rosters. Again, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, hit that like button. Let us know you're here. Let us know what team you follow and where you're from, and we'll make sure to mention some of the stuff that you guys are interested in. Here's a look at the Atlantic Division roster. Again, we get 6 forwards. We get 3 defensemen. We get 2 goaltenders for every single division. Here's a look at the Atlantic. Barkov from Florida. Eichel from Buffalo. Kucherov from Tampa. Brad Marchand from Boston. Austin Matthews from Toronto. Steven Stamkos is your captain from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Mike Green, Victor Hedman, and Carlson on defense. Price and Vasilevsky in the net. One thing I noticed right off the bat from the Atlantic Division is you have 4, count them, 4 representatives from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, you definitely deserve 4 because these guys are outstanding. There's not a better team in hockey. But 4 is a lot of roster space to eat up if you're the Atlantic Division team. And what I mean by that is, you've got a lot of guys that were in contention that are not going to make it because there's 4 guys from the Tampa Bay Lightning. On the other hand, I can't think of a team more deserving of the fact that they deserve to have 4 guys on the roster. Because who do you keep off of that roster? You know what I'm saying? Who do you keep off of this roster? You can't keep any of these guys off. Victor Hedman and none of these guys. So you got to put 4 Lightning. And it's ironically funny. With John Cooper in there, literally, technically, there's 5 members of the Tampa Bay Lightning on this team. 5 members out of 12. So they're almost making up 50% of the team. And then you sit back and you think about all the guys that didn't make it, and it sucks, but it's certainly deserving of these 4 players from Tampa. Now, speaking of guys that get left off this team, and that sucks, let's take a look at the Metropolitan Division. Josh Bailey getting pushed to his first NHL All Star game. He's certainly having a great, deserving year, and he makes it. Sidney Crosby, Claude Giroux, Taylor Hall. By the way, the Devils organization is pushing this as the Hall Star announcement. That's corny as hell, but I love wordplay jokes. If there's one thing you got to know about your old pal Ant, I love a good wordplay joke. I will always chuckle at that, no matter how stupid it is. You'll always get a little bit of a chuckle out of me. Always a little bit of a chuckle from something like that. The Hall Star announcement. Alexander Ovechkin and the second Islander, John Tavares. It's interesting that the Islanders are not in a playoff picture right now, but they have 2 representatives from their team going to the All-Star game. Noah Hannafin, Seth Jones, Chris Letang on defense. Goalies are Braden Holtby and Henrik Lundqvist. Lundqvist, the sole representative of the New York Rangers. 2 caps on there as well with Holtby and Ovechkin. No real surprise there. Here's the one shocker. Who's missing from this list? Think about this. Who's missing from this list? Evgeny Malkin. Just yesterday, I said, how could you have, there's no way. I mean, you're not going to get in the situation where you're not going to have Evgeny Malkin on the All-Star roster. And here we are, one day later with the official announcement, and Evgeny Malkin has been left off of the list. That's a tough pill to swallow. Now, do I love the 3-on-3? I do. I do enjoy the 3-on-3. But herein lies the problem with this. You're heading into an all-star game without Evgeny Malkin, without one of the great players of all time, without one of the great Pittsburgh Penguins of all time, without one of the greatest Russian players of all time. It's not necessarily a thing you really want to be doing. Now, there's going to be a lot of guys that we're going to talk about that are left off of this roster. And that's, of course, like stuff like that is going to happen, and there's nothing you can do about that. But no Evgeny Malkin. I mean, you're talking about one of the great players to ever play this game, and not even getting an invite to the All-Star game is shocking to me. And clearly one of the flaws in this system. It really, really is. Now, you can argue that with 12 guys, or I should say 11 guys, 22 guys, you're technically getting 2 more players from each, conference than you would have normally. Technically, that's true. But just because of the layout and where they are and the fact that they have to include everyone, you're missing out on some great players like an Evgeny Malkin. So I noticed that right off the bat, like, whew, that's rough. That is rough. Malkin has 21 points on the power play so far this year. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not like it's not deserved. We move over to the Central with Patrick Kane, McKinnon, Sagan, Shen, Stahl, and Wheeler. Subban, Klingberg, and Pietrangelo on there. Again, here's another scenario where St. Louis is a juggernaut, and they get 2 guys in there. Dallas, 2 guys in there. Winnipeg, 2 guys in there, and Nashville with 2 guys in there. Hellebuyck and Pekka Rinne in on the goalie positions. This one, it all shakes out really well. But again, you think about who's being left off of this list. And, there's a bunch of guys that are not going to be on the rosters there. Moving over to the Pacific, Brock Besser in his first rookie campaign. Johnny Gaudreau, the only Calgary Flame, and that's one of the exciting lines in the league. He is the only one that makes it in. Anze Kopitar, Connor McDavid, James Neal, Ricard Raquel, Brent Burns, Drew Doughty, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Marc-Andre Fleury, and Jonathan Quick. Again, yeah, where's Jonathan Toews? Here he is. No room for him. Take a look. No room on the bench for Jonathan Toews in the All-Star game. Again, one of the great players of the game, not as point productive as in Evgeny Malkin, but yeah, certainly a good, a good case of you want one of these, you want a Jonathan Toews in the All-Star game. And now he's not. And it's because of the format that they have here. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things and a lot of bad things about this. But again, like the obvious one to me is, no Evgeny Malkin, no Jonathan Toews. You look at the Metropolitan Division here, and, Jakub Voracek has the most assists in the league right now, and he doesn't make the cut. He doesn't make the cut. That's a tough thing to swallow. Going over to the Pacific. No, Doughty's in there. Let's see here. All the top points getters are in. I'm just going over. Oh, okay, here we go. The third leading goal scorer in the league is not in the All-Star game. The third leading goal scorer in the league, not in the All-Star game. Anders Lee of the New York Islanders not making it to the All-Star game. William Karlsson, 22 goals on the year. Top goal scorer for Vegas, not in the All-Star game. Tyler Sagan's there. Sean Monahan is not in there. And Vladdy Tarasenko also not in there. Again, I said Jakub Voracek leads in assists, not going to the All-Star game. Kucherov, Connor McDavid, and Klingberg all in there. Your plus-minus leaders, Jaden Swartz not going. Anton Stroman not going. Zdeno Chara not going. Out of the goalies, best goals against average, Tuukka Rask. Is Tuukka in? I don't think I saw him there, right? Where's the... Yeah. Third best goals against average, Tuukka Rask not going because you got Brad Marchand. And again, here you see the squeeze of the 4 players from Tampa. Now you can't get Tuukka Rask into the All-Star game. Corey Crawford. Did he make it in the Central? No. Corey Crawford doesn't make it in the Central. 5th best goals against average in the league. Can't make it. Vasilevsky gets in. He's got 27. Vasilevsky's got 27 wins and 6 shutouts. God, that guy is a juggernaut. Guy is just a monster. Guy is just an absolute monster. All right, we'll post some of the we'll post these rosters up on the Facebook pages, and we'll throw it in the description for our YouTube channel here. Hockey Talk Show on this Wednesday night. There's the All Star rosters for you as we take a look. Just announced. They were announced, by the way, at 3:30. So still no real explanation as to why we had to wait an extra 3.5 hours, and I've been trying to find it everywhere. But yeah, no explanation as to why. But 3.5 hours late, and there's your All Star rosters for this upcoming All Star game down in Tampa Bay. Let's get into the fight drama over there in Buffalo. You had Justin Falk taking some swings and getting tough on Evander Kane. Let's see here. Of course, Buffalo in last place. According to the Olean Times Herald's Bill Hope, he says that Buffalo defenseman Justin Falk screamed at Evander Kane before shoving the Sabres star winger during a Wednesday practice, according to Bill Hope. He shoved him and screamed, "Shut the expletive up, you selfish expletive." Ouch. By the way, I don't say expletive, I say expletive because for some reason on my radio show, Bono said expletive once, and I just thought that I just found his accent to be hilarious. And so now all I do is say expletive instead of expletive. I realize that's wrong, but I just say I'm with Bono. When it comes to pronunciations, I'm with Bono. Paul Hamilton took to Twitter and said, Falk on the incident with Kane, it was the heat of the moment. It boiled over, to be honest. Maybe a little more stuff like that is probably what we need. Phil Housley said, it's good to see some emotion. It was a battle practice and tempers flared up. It was more the heat of the battle. Do we have Justin Falk here? Yeah, they're going to be able to hear from Justin Falk, so we'll get this clip up for you. I think good. I'm with Phil Housley on this one. You need a little fight, especially when things aren't going all that well for you, you know?
You guys are angry, and it just seemed like it boiled over in practice, so what happened out there?
It's just stir of the moment. Emotions are running high. It's the time of year where we're at. Personally, everyone's got a different situation they're in. Just heat of the moment boiled over. To be honest, maybe a little bit more stuff like that is probably what we need. Get things going here, get guys playing with a bit more passion and urgency to help right the ship here.
Is it something that once it's over, it's over? I mean, then everybody's in the locker room and teammates again?
Yeah, this is not the first time it's happened by any means, and with any team I've been on. And to be quite honest, I think it's healthy. You're pushing each other, you're honest with each other, you're upfront with each other. You know, there's no BS behind anything, and you gotta that's just how you have to have it.
All right, there you go. Justin Falk getting a little tough. Getting a little tough on it. We have Evander Kane's reaction too. I didn't have a chance to preview any of this before we got on the air today, so forgive me if we're a little disjointed, but that was Justin Falk on what happened. And here, let's bring in Evander Kane's comments. Make sure we get this teed up for you guys so you get a good listen. Here's Evander Kane's response to what happened in practice today with the Sabres.
When things like that happen, do you guys just brush it off once the practice is over and everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the heat of the moment. It's guys kind of just trying to push each other. And
it was the heat of the moment. Sorry. 80s flashback song moment.
And it's guys kind of just trying to push each other and make each other better. And I think that's part of the game, and you see it from time to time.
Were you telling him to keep his stick down?
Sorry?
Were you telling Justin to keep his stick down?
I don't know what I was saying. We'll leave what I said on the ice to between us and the team. And
I'm not repeating that. I'm not repeating that.
With Justin, or have you, or will you later today?
I really don't think it's that big of a deal as you guys are maybe making it out to be. I think it happens more often than maybe you guys see. And like I said, it was just a battle on one play, and it was pretty quickly over after that, as you guys saw.
All right, so there you go. Media making too big of a deal out of it. That's probably true. But that's the media's job. Media's job is to make a big deal out of that. He should have sang "Heat of the Moment," though. That would have been the best ever. It was the heat of the moment. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe it's not warranting bringing up what happened in Winnipeg with Evander Kane. Maybe it was just a brush up in practice. But I think the fact that, he got called, what was it, lazy? What was it? Selfish. I think the fact that he got called selfish kind of is a little bit more indicative of the type of player that Evander Kane is. By the way, the price for Evander Kane, according to the TSN insiders, and I believe this really came from Pierre Brun more than any of the other ones. They're looking for a first, a prospect, and a conditional pick. So that's a little high, I think, for Evander Kane, who's going to come out to be flat out a rental. But that's around where I would assume the price to be in January. Again, we're 2 months away from the trade deadline. What is it, late February or early March? It's always kind of in that area. So less than a month and a half away or so, a little bit more than a month and a half away from the trade deadline. That's kind of where the price should be, but that's a little high for where it really should wind up. A first-round draft pick to get Evander Kane, a prospect, and a conditional pick. Now, I'm sorry, I dropped that bass. I don't know what you're saying. Now, consider this too, and keep this in mind that's going to come down in price. But the conditional pick, from what I understand, is if they want a conditional pick, if Kane re-signs. So if Kane gets traded somewhere and he signs with that team long term, Buffalo wants to be compensated for that. To me, that's the first thing to go in this discussion. That'll definitely come off. He'll go for a prospect and a pick. And I think that the level of prospect will determine just how heated the market becomes for Evander Kane. Because again, consider this. Evander Kane should be the cheapest option out there because he has no term left. You should pay a lot more for Max Pacioretty, and you should pay a lot more for Mike Hoffman with 2 years left on his deal than you should be paying for Evander Kane. So you got to consider that. The price tag for these other guys, they're all going to set the price for one another, and who you're really going to want to go after. Buffalo should be constipated. No, you misunderstood. I said compensated, not constipated. But with Buffalo, yeah, similar situations. So I'll be really interested to see what Evander Kane goes for. And I think he'll go first. But I think that his price needs to be justified, because the weird thing is you can't have, I mean, everybody's got to assume he's going to be the cheapest. So I think that's why he'll go first. And you're going to have to give up a lot more to get the other guys. You can't have Evander Kane going for a pick and a prospect, and then you have Max Pacioretty going for a pick and a prospect and another prospect, or a first and a third and a like. It's just the price for Pacioretty's got to be a lot higher. It's just got to be. But you never know. With Montreal, the market might just be better in the offseason, meaning there'll be some more contracts coming off the books. They'll be able to wheel and deal a little bit more. More teams might be able to be in on the mix, So it might make more sense for them to wait longer term if you're the Montreal Canadiens. There's no guarantee that Pacioretty goes. The only guarantee is, or the only possibility is, teams get really desperate to get that upgrade and they overpay for Pacioretty before the deadline. We'll have to wait and see if that happens. Ton more deadlines to go over, and we'll tackle that on the show again tomorrow. It's a quiet night in the National Hockey League again, much like it was just a couple of nights ago. Ottawa and Toronto on the 7:30 game, and Minnesota and Chicago have the national game in the States at 8 o'clock. Give me Toronto. Give me Chicago at home at 8 o'clock. I'm expecting a pissed off Jonathan Taves, upset that he didn't make the All-Star game and he can't wear those ugly, disgusting jerseys to get in there and help light it up tonight for the Chicago Blackhawks. We're back with you tomorrow for another live show. Thanks for all the comments on Facebook and YouTube. Remember to like and share this post. Tell your buddies on Twitter and Instagram. The Hockey Talk Show exists. And remember to rate and review on the podcast TuneIn Radio. Don't forget as well, if you want to pick up some All-Star gear and you want to torture somebody with those terrible jerseys, or you want to just pick up some gear on the cheap, we got links in the description on Facebook and YouTube, as well as on the homepage of Hockey Talk Show for you guys to score some deals on some NHL gear from the official NHL store. Enjoy the night of hockey. I'll see you